English 102 students, it's Miss Alsamani. I'm so glad that you guys have finished Hamlet. It's one of the best plays ever written. It's honestly a huge reason why I chose to be an English major, this particular film. Actually, I saw it in high school and I just knew that I was supposed to be an English major. So I hope you enjoyed it. I wish we could have watched it together and discussed it as we went along, but unfortunately that wasn't an option with the quarantine. So thank you so much for watching the film on your own and taking that initiative. So I do recommend finishing the film before you watch this video. I am gonna plot spoil quite a bit about the end and a lot of the characters. So if you've not watched it, pause this video, finish watching the film, come back to the video, and then you can get a lot more out of it instead of just a bunch of plot spoiling. So essentially, Hamlet focuses on the theme of revenge. Hamlet's father, King Hamlet, is murdered by Claudius. Claudius is the king's brother. And so Hamlet's uncle assumes the throne, marries his mother, and essentially Hamlet already does not like his uncle, but once he finds out that he murdered his father, of course he wants to revenge his father's death. So that really drives the plot forward. I've had a couple of students already ask where this is set. It is in Elsinore in Denmark, essentially. It's the capital of Denmark at this time, and so it's really focusing on the royalty of Denmark, so that helps a little bit. Obviously, it was written in England. William Shakespeare is English, and it was written and published in 1600, so that is kind of like the mindset of the time, essentially, and would have informed the dialogue of the play, which is why it is a little bit more difficult to understand. It is Shakespearean English or early modern English and not our regular English. But I know with the topics I mentioned that you could write about themes, so I want to mention some of the most common themes in the play, essentially. Not only is there revenge, that was definitely a major theme, but there's also murder. There's a lot of murdering going on in this play. Essentially, King Claudius murders his brother, which starts the plot, essentially. That happens even before the play begins. And then, after that, Hamlet murders Polonius, Ophelia and Laertes' father. He thinks that it's King Claudius whenever he's behind the curtain, but he actually kills Polonius. And then Ophelia dies from drowning. It is suicide. And so it's a very controversial death, and that's why they debate whether or not she should have Christian burial, because suicide is one of those deaths that is debated on whether or not you can actually ascend to heaven after. And so essentially there's the theme of suicide, there's murder. Of course, at the end, it's a bloodbath, essentially. Laertes gets Hamlet with a poisoned sword, and then Hamlet returns the blow to Laertes and gives him a blow with the poisoned sword. The queen drinks from the poisoned cup, and so essentially Claudius kills his own wife accidentally. And then Gertrude dies, and then I don't know if you guys caught it, but whenever Hamlet is sent into England with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, his friends or supposed friends that were really spying for the king, he actually switches a letter that originally said that Hamlet should be beheaded. Claudius was asking England to behead Hamlet, and then instead of Hamlet getting beheaded, pirates attack the ship. Hamlet escapes, but before he escapes, he exchanges the letter so that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are actually killed in England. So even those characters are killed. And then of course Hamlet finally does get his revenge for his father at the very end. After so many characters have died, he kills Claudius in various ways. He gets him to drink the poisoned cup, he stabs him with a poisoned sword, and then obviously in the film they even do a dramatic chandelier coming down on top of him. So it's very dramatic. That last 10-15 minutes is just one character dies after another, so I know that that was pretty intense for you guys. Most students are at the edge of their seats during that part, and that's one of my favorite parts of watching you guys watch the film, and I'm so disappointed we didn't get to watch it together, but I hope you got a lot out of it. So of course there were a lot of famous quotes in the play. To be or not to be, that is the question. Essentially Hamlet is considering suicide at that section. He feels overwhelmed with the revenge that he needs to get on his uncle, and so he really would rather not live anymore. And so that's what the significance of to be or not to be is. To thine own self be true is said by Polonius to Laertes' son before he leaves for France. And so that's a major famous quote, essentially, to thine own self be true, but then it's ironically said by a character who is not true at all. Polonius spies on Hamlet. He sends a spy to France to spy on his son Laertes. He really doesn't give the whole truth to Ophelia on why he wants Ophelia to stop seeing Hamlet. And then poor Ophelia is essentially dragged back and forth between what she wants and then what her father wants for her. This was a time period when a lot of students are confused often by this. Why couldn't Ophelia and Hamlet be together? But Hamlet is a prince, and so typically princes married princesses, essentially. They married other members of the royalty, and it might not necessarily be a Danish or Denmark royalty. It could be someone from another country, and so they would marry to essentially give allegiance to each other as an alliance kind of pact, because then their children would have claims to both thrones, essentially, not just Denmark, but whatever other country the bride came from. So that was pretty common, whereas Ophelia is not royalty, she's not nobility, and so they cannot really marry for love. Hamlet is not really able to, and that's why Polonius and Laertes both advise her to stop seeing Hamlet, because they worry about her losing her chastity. Also, at this time, it was very important that virginity remained intact until marriage, so that was a major issue at the time that might not necessarily be clear to a modern audience. So I hope you guys got a lot out of the play. I talked about characters, talked about themes: murder, suicide, revenge. Obviously the afterlife, the ghost comes back. He's essentially in purgatory, King Hamlet's ghost, because he has unresolved business. He needed to tell Hamlet how he died so that he could revenge. And notice at the end of the film, they tear down the statue of King Hamlet, so he's essentially put to rest because Hamlet eventually did revenge his murder. So his storyline really makes the whole film and makes the whole play. The king's murder is what really drives this plot forward, and the revenge for that murder. Some of the most common symbols in this play, obviously Hamlet, whenever you hear or see about it, it's almost always that he's holding a skull in the graveyard. He actually knew the person that it was Yorick, essentially. Yorick, I knew him, essentially. He was the jester, the court jester that Hamlet knew as a small child. And so whenever he's holding Yorick's skull, he's essentially philosophizing about the nature of death, how we all ultimately will die. Every great person, like Alexander, Julius Caesar, he lists a lot of really famous historical figures that were great men of the time, and they were already historically significant by 1600, of course. And so he points out that even great men must go to the earth. They must ultimately be food for worms, and that's a theme that's repeated all the time in the play, because even whenever Polonius is killed and Claudius keeps asking, where is Polonius? And he says, oh, he's at dinner, not where he eats, but where he is eaten. The idea of death and returning back to the earth is very common in this play. So obviously the skull is a symbol of death. Ophelia repeatedly mentions flowers, especially after she loses her mind. When her father is murdered from the one love in her life, Hamlet, it drives her insane. And obviously Hamlet pretends to be insane, but Ophelia literally goes insane, which is really pitiful, because she goes from being this very sweet, innocent person, innocent character, to she is a victim of her circumstance, essentially. Hamlet has killed her father. It drives her insane, but she sings about flowers repeatedly. Flowers are usually symbolic of love, but notice whenever Ophelia dies, Gertrude strews the flowers over her grave and says, I wished to have given you these flowers on your wedding day to my son, essentially. Ophelia also dies by drowning. You can drown a flower. For those of you that like to actually do any gardening, you can overwater a flower and it die, and so Ophelia is like a flower who has been overwatered, essentially. So definitely flowers represent love, death. I mean, we give flowers at a grave site, and it also definitely represents Ophelia's character. So another major symbol would be the crown. Essentially, Claudius does horrible things to get the crown. It's all about ambition for him. He wants to be the king. He wants to marry Gertrude. Hamlet, technically, when his father died, should have become king of Denmark, but Claudius usurps the throne from him by marrying Gertrude. And so the crown definitely is a symbol in the play for power, for ambition, for essentially ruling the kingdom. And so that's another major symbol. A lot of students like to point out that the ghost can be a symbol as well for the afterlife and for not being able to rest essentially after death. And so that's another major symbol. A lot of students, they'll pick up symbols that I didn't necessarily pick up. So even if I didn't list a symbol or a theme, you can definitely propose that idea. Notice that you do have a rough draft due for this essay. It's in a couple of weeks, so you've got a little bit of time for it. If you need help with ideas, or if none of the topics are really speaking to you, feel free to propose a topic to me. You can just shoot me a quick email and course mail, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or approve any topics that do have to relate to Hamlet. You can't write about Romeo and Juliet or Macbeth or some other Shakespeare play that you've read in the past. It does need to focus on Hamlet. It's just part of the course. So I hope this has helped. I think on the topic sheet I've got at the top how to do the in-text citations for quotations. It also points out a section of your Seagull textbook on where you can find an example, but essentially when you quote from a play, you want to have the act, the scene, and the line number are in the parentheses. You don't have to worry about listing Shakespeare. It's understood that Shakespeare is writing the quote, so you don't have to put his name in that parentheses, but just that act, scene, and line number, and I've got it demonstrated at the very top of your topic sheet. Also, I have the works cited page done for you on the second page of the topic sheet, so you can just copy and paste that citation into your essay. That way you don't have to worry about that part of the essay. So I just want you to focus on your interpretation of Hamlet, what you got out of the play. If there was a character that was particularly interesting to you, you can focus on that character. Notice there are multiple topics that focus on an individual character. If you really liked Ophelia, I've got a topic on there that focuses on Ophelia's character and how she changes. If you're interested in Fortinbras, essentially, he's always in the background. He is a rival prince essentially, and he's a foil for Hamlet because old Norway, his uncle, controls Fortinbras, and so that's kind of another element of the play that's very interesting. And he actually had a claim to the Denmark throne, so that's why at the end Fortinbras becomes king of Denmark, because all of the other claimants are dead already in the court, and so Fortinbras is able just to sit on the throne and take it for his own. So I think I've explained most of the main ideas, but if you do have questions, please ask those questions. Remember, in discussion board, part of your participation for the last couple of weeks, I wanted you guys to be able to focus on the film, but there is a section in discussion board where you can ask 3 questions. I'll give you thorough answers to those questions. Also, notice your classmates also are able to ask questions, so you might want to click into their threads as well in discussion board, because it could be that they've asked questions you had yourself, or maybe I give answers that help explain a concept you didn't realize you were confused about originally. So I do recommend asking those questions soon. I can give those answers to you, and then also checking in with your classmates' threads because they've already asked some pretty good questions. So let me know if you have any questions. I miss you guys. I wish that we could have our in-person classes, but this is all for a really good reason, for safety, and I want everyone to stay healthy and happy and finish this semester strong. Remember, this is our very last essay for the course, and so once you finish your Hamlet essay and turn it in, you're essentially done for your English 102 class. And so I will miss you guys, and I've had a really good time teaching you. I'll probably do a sign-off video as well, since this one's pretty long, and by this point some folks are probably bored, but I hope you all stay healthy and happy, and I miss teaching you guys. And also, I did read your student surveys. Those were amazing. They really helped uplift me in this time where it's been difficult for me to not be able to see and interact with students, and so getting your positivity and your positive words really helped boost my morale so that I can also finish this semester strong. So I miss you guys. Hope you have a wonderful day and stay safe. Thanks. Bye.